Good morning, everybody. I'm Christopher Dagger, MA student over here at the Theology Department at Concordia University. And yesterday I had the pleasure of having Scott Royal, the former host of Off Bishop Street podcast. We talked a lot about psychology. We talked about all the different anxieties that come with social media, and it was a nice way to kick off this new edition, the 2.0 version of the Off Bishop Street podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of receiving Nandom Gunen at the department over here at the Lonergan Center. So, Nandom, how are you doing today, man?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put on my helmet. So, yeah, man, it's great to have you. And
Thank you.
I was very excited to talk to you about the different topics that pertain to theology, but that also stretch on beyond, like in your social life and and all the different intellectual and societal aspirations that you may have had, coming into the program. So, Nandom comes from Africa, and specifically you're from Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken. Right. So, tell us about your upbringing, like your Christian background, and basically your the religious aspects of your life.
Oh, thank you so much, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm super excited.
Likewise, yeah, we're all pretty excited.
Yeah, thank you. So, I have to say that my father played a very important role in my life as a young child growing up. My father was, of course, an evangelist, and then who later on became a priest. A traditional ruler. But he played a very important role in my life because as a young child, I saw lots of people coming to our house for counseling, for prayers, and for advice. And then I saw most of them, they came in sad, but eventually they came out so excited and looking good. So I was just wondering what that could be. And I thought it was a noble profession. It was a noble call to make people to smile. But I never knew what all that was until when I grew up. And then my mom also played a very important role. In the night before we go to bed, we sit around, pray, sing hymns together, and then we sleep. So those memories, they are still very fresh in my life. So my parents, essentially, they played a very important role. But I must have to say that I could not make any decision to be a Christian at that time. It was eventually when I grew up, and I think precisely 18 or so, between 17, 18, I can't remember precisely, when a friend of mine gave me a book to read. I think the book is Deliver from the Power of Darkness by Sister Grace. And I read that book, and then it connected with what my parents have been teaching me, and I felt that I needed to make a decision at that point. So essentially, that's just a little background into how I made up my mind to become a Christian. Yeah, but that aside, I think it was a kind of turning point, and then an exposure to lots of roles and responsibilities as well. Because after that, some few years, I found myself becoming a student Christian leader.
Right.
Particularly in the secondary school here. I think here in Quebec is it CEGEP?
Well, CEGEP is more of a sponge transition period between high school and university. It's concisely, it's the last year of your senior year, basically, in high school, grafted to your freshman year in university. Oh. And they stick that together, and they call that CEGEP.
Okay.
So everybody has to go through CEGEP to get to university if they want to do like a university program.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's not CEGEP. I think it's high school.
Right.
So I was in high school, and then after a while, I was chosen by my fellow students to begin to organize prayer meetings for them, and then to become secretary of the Fellowship of Christian Students. If you've ever went to university in Nigeria, you will know that in the south, there's what they call the Student Union, and in the north, there's what they call Fellowship of Christian Students. It's a gathering of non-denominational fellowship where people who are called Christians, they come together to fellowship together. Gotcha. To take care about their welfare, physical welfare and spiritual welfare as well. So that was the beginning for me. And essentially, as I continued to grow, I went to what I will now call CJEP here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We call it IJMB in the north. It's a kind of a transition. You do a 1-year program there with a A-level program, and then you proceed to the university. There, I was also assigned a role in the prayer to coordinate the prayers. And then, by the time I went to the university, I also became, which was much more bigger, I became the general secretary of the Fellowship of Christian Students. Now, if you are in Nigeria and you've ever been to ABU Zaria, Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, you know that it's one of the most biggest universities in Africa in terms of structure and sound academic culture. So, and it's quite multicultural. So I became the secretary of the Fellowship of Christian Students there. And then after that, when I graduated from the university, there is also in Nigeria, there is a policy known as the National Youth Service Corps. So the National Youth Service Corps is a program set up by the government after the Civil War, right, where if you graduate from the university, if you are from the northern part of the country, you will be posted to the southern part or eastern part or western part. So it's interchangeably. Right. So and then you will go there to experience their culture, and it's kind of it has a kind of a paramilitary exposure. So essentially every graduate in Nigeria has undergone that paramilitary kind of training.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So and then we also have there's what they call NCCF, Nigerian Christian Corpus Fellowship. It's also a fellowship where Christians from different backgrounds come together to take care of their welfare spiritually and physically, and also to reach out to the community with medical outreach. You know, we go survey communities that are in need of medicine, encouragement, and counseling. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's a gathering of graduates. So essentially there are medical graduates amongst us. So you see, we go source for medicine and then we go for outreach. So when I got there, I was also chosen to become the general secretary as well. And I played a very important, significant role there, and I became a member of the National Delegate Conference, right, where we travel quarterly from all the way from Lagos, Western Nigeria, to Jos, Central Nigeria. It's about 12, 13 hours drive, but as young people, we're very adventurous.
Right, yeah. That's actually, it's a nice opportunity for shenanigans, I guess, on the road.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
people like the grind.
Yeah, so I played that role, and then after graduation, I didn't really go into ministry service immediately, but some years later, I started playing role in my church, the Church of Christ in Nations. I became the coordinator of the evangelism outreach, and just like my father, who helped to establish 2 churches, I also had the privilege of planting 2 churches.
Really, you did that?
Yeah.
Congrats! I raise my hat to you. That's great. Wow.
Yeah, in a suburb in Abuja, okay, Buari Area Council to be precise. And then there are 2 churches that by the grace of God, I was able to help plant, and those churches, they are doing extremely well. I receive feedback from them even here in Montreal. So one of them is in the border town between Abuja and Niger State. And the other one is in a place called Zuma. And Zuma is where one of the biggest Catholic university in Nigeria is situated. Okay. The Veritas University in Abuja. So each of those churches, they have between 25 to 50 families that attends the church every Sunday. And then, I became a pastor in the church. And then in 2021, the church council and its synod met, and they granted me what they call license. So that license will now authorize me to begin to administer church sacraments.
Okay.
Yeah, but then it was a kind of a precursor to ordination. So so while that discussions and preparations for ordination was going on, then Concordia said, "We want you."
Okay, so yeah, but that was like after a good while of serving, not only serving Christianity within Nigeria, but serving Nigeria as a whole.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny how, or it's amazing how religion plays such a major role in different parts of the world, especially in Africa. Like I don't see um, Africa, and again, you can correct me on that. I don't see Africa existing without some sort of religiosity or spirituality to it that is at its core, at its foundations, right? Like it's so fundamental to African culture, even Nigerian culture. I may assume. So I was actually going to dive into it. Like, how did you transition, like from Nigeria over to Concordia? Like, what was the driving factor, the motivating factor to come over here in this very cold and white covered snow country, right?
Thank you so very much for that question. Like I said, we haven't got into that, but I also had the opportunity to work with the government in Nigeria. So I was working with one of the federal government agency known as the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund, and in that office, just as it is in Nigeria, most offices they have you see churches and mosques
Right.
in those in those offices, and it's legal, it's allowed. So in NSITF we have churches, or we have what we call chapels, and then we also have mosques. So while there, I was also the pastor of one of the branches, precisely in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory branch. Mm-hmm. So I was a pastor there. Just to lay the background to what your questions, to answer your questions. So while I was there, I had the opportunity to interact with Nigerians cut across diverse, because of course it's a federal government establishment. So you are bound to meet Nigerians from different backgrounds and from different parts of the country. So I had the opportunity on daily basis to meet those Nigerians, and then to as I counsel them, pray for them, encourage them when they had difficult times, and so on and so forth. And then one day, one of the ladies, she looked at me and she said, "Pastor, you have so much in you. The world need to hear about you. You need to really showcase what we have here to the world." And I said, "Wow, what are you talking about?"
That's the question.
Yeah, and she said, "You have the charisma, you have the ability. It's visible. You've done a lot for Nigeria and for our community here, and it will be also be nice if you have a very wider view of theology and religion.
Right.
Let it not be limited to Nigeria here. You need to go out to some parts of the world to acquire skills and more knowledge, and to have a very versatile knowledge about the theology." So I said, "Wow, that's great." So I went back, and then I gave it a thought, and then she said, "Have you ever considered coming to Canada?"
Yeah, that's
yeah, because of course Canada is very popular in Nigeria.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask how much do people know about Canada? Right?
Oh, fantastic! If you meet 10 Nigerian youths, 8 of them will tell you their dream is to come to Canada.
Really?
Yeah.
That's very flattering.
Yeah, exactly. I've proven them right.
Okay.
Yeah, right now that I'm here, I think I've proven them right. They have a valid reason why they should do that.
Well, bring them over. Send them some invites and bring them over to the department. Like tell them Canada needs you, and we have open arms, and
if the department
just
wants...
put on like a nice winter coat to be very to remain hot, to stay hot.
Yeah, that's something that if the department really wants, we can talk to lots of young people who are talented and gifted that can add value to the department as well from Nigeria, because Nigeria is a very vibrant country with vibrant young people.
Oh, no doubt.
Talented.
Sure, yeah.
It's so, sometimes I walk in Montreal with my shoulders high. You know why? I went to IGA to buy some stuff at the grocery, and then I could hear a Nigerian song just playing over and over and over inside the store.
Oh, on the radio or?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard that. Really?
And then I also work at FedEx.
Okay.
So and I do the night shift. So while at work, throughout the night, I keep hearing Nigerian music all through, and I say, "Wow, I'm so proud to be a Nigerian here in Montreal, because I could see how Nigerian artwork is being celebrated here all over the place." I think if there's anything that Nigeria has as a gift to the world, is the vibrancy of the Nigerian youths, and they're highly talented and gifted. So back to the story.
Right.
Yeah. So but then she told me, I went back to the lady and she told me, well, I don't think I have much to tell you, but just think about it and see if you could look for schools in Canada and then come to Canada. So in Africa, we feel that there are ways God speaks to you. God can speak to you through your intuition, and then through somebody, and through your circumstances as well. So I felt that, okay, maybe I should give it a thought. So during the peak of the COVID-19, there was lockdown in Nigeria.
Of course.
But of course, some staff who are at senior level do come to work. So I fall within that category. So I was coming to work. So one day I picked my laptop and then I was searching for schools. Then I saw Concordia as one of the schools. Mm-hmm. Then I saw Miguel in Montreal, and I saw some other few schools. So I checked through, and number one, I realized that the website of Concordia is very, very user friendly and easy to navigate. You see?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just navigating through, and I got information, and then I started contacting professors here. In this, I started looking for where there's theology. Do they offer theological studies? Mm-hmm. And then I looked and I saw theological studies. So I started contacting professors here, and then I think the first professor I contacted should be, I think, who I will later get to discover as when I arrived at the department, as Professor Jameson.
Okay, so my first contact when I came in was Professor Turchescu, because I grew up in Montreal. I'm originally from Toronto, and off of when I applied back in the summer of 2021, it was my second choice, actually.
Okay.
So I applied for the MA program in theological studies, and I was accepted, but I wasn't expecting to be accepted because of the fact that I hadn't done any undergraduate studies in theological studies other than one elective course. That's all I had on my track record.
Wow.
But then my first contact was Dr. Lucian Turchescu, and he opened the door, and I was super happy. So super happy to pursue a master's level program, because that would intrinsically mean that you could actually go to a PhD afterwards if you work hard during those graduate studies.
Yeah.
So came in fall of 2021, and it's nice to have, like, you're always going to remember that one professor, the first one that actually opens the door, greets you in. And I think in your case, you just mentioned it's Dr. Jameson, who taking a course with her right now.
Yeah, I that was at the very beginning.
Right.
She was the first person that I sent an email to, and then she replied, and she said, maybe I have to contact Dr. Turchescu, because the research topic that I mentioned wasn't her area of specialization, because she's more into indigenous spirituality.
Right.
So and then she referred me to Professor Turchescu. Mm-hmm. So and amazingly, I sent an email to Professor Turchescu, and his response was superb. I think he responded, I think it was the same day, because so that kind of thrilled me, and I said, wow, there must be very efficient people in this environment. So he responded. I quickly sent him my profile, and he said, wow, you are qualified, go ahead and apply. Right. You see, so and I applied, and then I was given the admission with some fundings, the split Concordia Merit split scholarship, and right. Then teaching assistant. These things, I'm very, very grateful to the department for those beautiful offers. They've made my studies to be much more easier. So, and Professor Tuchestu is extremely superb because he guided me all through the process, and he replied every single email that you sent. Sometimes I wonder how he does it, but then he's super great at what he does. So, and then unfortunately, I had to defer my admission because I couldn't get the visa on time. Yeah, but thankfully, I eventually got the visa. I was supposed to start in the winter of 2022, I think.
Yeah, last year. Okay.
Yeah, but then it was shifted to the fall.
Right. Yeah, that's a bummer sometimes because people might think that it's only one semester afterwards, but
Yeah.
it's actually a full 8 months. Because if you're getting deferred, let's say somebody doesn't get admitted into the program in the fall,
Yeah.
well, that's all. It's only 4 months later that they can jump in the wintertime, which means 4 months is not that bad. But then again, when you double that time from winter to the next fall, you have to count for the summertime because there's a summer semester or summer period, which actually is 4 months as well: May, June, July, and August.
Yeah, exactly.
And how did you get busy during that period? When you got deferred, like, what did you do during that gap?
Okay. During the time that I got my admission deferred, of course I was still working.
Right.
Yeah, so I kept doing what I was doing.
As a pastor?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, in the church,
Right.
and at the same time going to my work in the office. And aside from that, I was also getting to acquire more information, to get to know more about Canada, to get to know more what to expect at the airport, to get to know more about the department, those things that I need to get myself acquainted with, to get to know more about how to get accommodation in Montreal. The Concordia University is well organized.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's well organized because there are mentors, even online, student mentors on Facebook, on WhatsApp, and so on. So during those periods, I was keeping regular touch with the mentors, with some of my concerns, and then they were responding as quickly as possible. Then I have to say something about the ISO, the International Students Office. They are also wonderful. Even while in Nigeria, some things that were of concern to me, I kept asking them questions about them, and eventually they will always respond. And sometimes it could be a drop-in session online. Sometimes it could be you just send an email and they will say, because of the volume of request, it's going to take some days. But sometimes you get the feedback just a day interval. So just to tell you that they are really doing their best as well. So, and then when I eventually came here, Professor Tuchestu coincidentally was the first professor that I met. So
Right.
I was like, wow, I'm so super excited to meet this professor firsthand. This somebody that is very, very great, very efficient, and ever willing to respond to all forms of inquiries.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, and given that he's, if I'm not mistaken, the graduate program director,
Yeah.
having that warmth in receiving students open armed with open arms, it's just a great attribute.
Yeah, exactly.
To see in a professor, and it's interesting to see how you were able to manage office work with pastoral work during a gap period. During which you're probably pretty excited
Yeah.
to get into the program over at Concordia. And I was very excited when back in, was it June or July of 2021, I got the acceptance. I knew I was going to fly around, go to Europe. I went to Europe twice that summer.
Wow, great.
Yeah, once in July and once in August, and I kind of tweaked my Europe tours to see theological places, like mostly Catholic places.
Okay.
I grew up as a Catholic. I consider myself more as an overarching Christian now.
Okay.
So yeah, I went to all these different places during that summertime to
Wow.
learn more and to really get wet with all the theological material and architecture and the input that Europe had.
Oh, wow.
So like if you're probably familiar with the different places like Fatima in Portugal.
Okay.
It's some very a very strong Catholic site over there.
Okay.
Santiago de Compostela, that's in western Spain.
Okay.
Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, like the Vatican near Rome. Jasna Gora in Poland. So Europe has different places where people go as pilgrims or as visitors to go see, to go pray, and do that kind of thing. I'd like to know about Nigeria and Africa as a whole. Are there like pilgrimage sites or religious places that people go to? That okay, this is that like the go-to destination for people to go pray. Like these are like go-to churches or go-to spiritual religious locations in Africa or even just in Nigeria. Like, tell me about that.
Thank you, Chris, for this great question. Just to answer your question, Africans are people who are deeply rooted in spirituality.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, and even before the arrival of the missionaries to Africa and to Nigeria, already people have their own way of worshiping. And in my own community, in Mangu local government area of Plateau State, central Nigeria, we have a kind of a worship that seems to be not too different from the Christian perspective. So, which is why, if you look at it, 80% of my community, they are Christians. Because even before the coming of the missionaries, we had a kind of our worship is structured in such a way that we had a priest, and we had the people. The priest go into his shrine, and then he make consultation, and then tell what the divine being is saying to the community, and then they have a code, a traditional code. You must not steal, you must not commit adultery, you must not do this. Those things are basically oral tradition, but they are there. They help to regulate the way we live our lives. So
like the Ten Commandments.
Yeah. So when the missionaries came and they started telling about the 10 Commandments, now people say, wow, this looks like our own. This looks like us.
Right.
You see? So it's just in the change in the modus operandi, but then people see Christianity as, how do I put it? Close to what they know.
Right.
Yeah. So they accepted Christianity quickly. Now, coming to your question, because of that, some other in Africa, some other communities were not able to develop their own religious sites to the point that it could be, it will have that tourist perspective. But I think I should give credit to the Yorubas people in the western part of Nigeria. They have Oshun spiritual festival every year.
Oshun.
Yeah, Oshun. Now, if you go there every year, the Yorubas all over the world. Of course, you know that the Yorubas are also found in Cuba, in Brazil, in Haiti.
I've heard about that word, but I'm not sure. Like I couldn't really categorize it well. But
yeah, exactly. You can find them in Brazil. You can find them in Cuba. You can also find them in I think Haiti as well. So every year during the festival, it's a kind of a reunion where the Yorubas and even other people, they come to Oshun, where they see the religious sites. They perform some rituals. There's water there. They say, oh, if you touch this water or you drink this water, whatsoever, you come in with an expectation. If you go back home, you will be fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Notre Dame de Lourdes in southern France, another place that I went to.
Okay.
They actually have the water stream with the very small water flasks, and I've had friends ask me to bring back some holy water.
Oh wow!
From France, from Lourdes, basically, and I brought that back in my luggage. So yeah, it's interesting. But is it like a Christian site, the Oshun, or is it like a mixed?
No. I don't think it's not Christian. That one is basically the traditional worship of the Yoruba. It's more of a cultural thing.
Okay.
Yeah, but for the Christianity, I think the only what we have are historical sites of some of the events that occurred earlier when the missionaries came. For example, in some parts of Nigeria, precisely if you go down to the south, um, to Calabar, Cross River. You know, you've heard about Cross River? Cross River is a state in Nigeria, very beautiful.
Right.
And then every year they have a festival that they do. But it also has a very rich history because in Calabar at that time, they had a culture where they see twins as evil.
Twins is evil.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you give birth to twins, they kill the twins.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, what's the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, maybe it's they are sign of bad luck. You should only give birth to one child. Why should it be twins? They are evil. So a very famous British missionary, Mary Silencer, when she came to Calabar, then she saw that horrible practice, and she found a way of making the locals to stop it and to allow the twins to live. So till today, that site is being remembered. There is a church there where that happened. So I think that church is still there, and that community is still there. So if you go there, you see it as a historical site, Christian historical site.
And
right?
what denomination is that particular church?
I can't remember precisely, but people from that side, I think the church they call it, is it a Kwai Iboy church? I can't figure out. But then I will try and get the details about that. But what happens is that it was happening in the community, but when she came in as a missionary, there was a church that they were fellowshipping. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think during this Black people's, Black months of Black history.
Yeah, Black History Month.
Yeah.
In February.
Yeah, there was we had an exhibition in the department.
Oh, okay.
I think the church was one of the historical site that was captured on the where people can come and see as part of the African this thing. So she played that key role. So if you go to Nigeria, in respect to Christianity, those are some of the historical sites you see. Then the first church in Nigeria, the first church that was ever built in Nigeria, is still there the way it is.
When was it built?
Yeah, I think that should be in Abeokuta. Abeokuta is the capital city of Ogun State. Ogun State is a state in Nigeria, in the southwestern part of Nigeria.
Ogun State. Okay.
Yeah, so I think that church is a Cathedral of St. Paul. I think St. Paul, something like that.
What year was it built? Do you know, like around what time, what century?
Yeah, I can't remember the year, but it's visible. It's online. It's something I can easily check. But if you go to Abeokuta, Ogun State, you'll see the church there. So these are some of the Christian tradition, the historical sites of Christian that signifies major events. Then other denominations could have their own as well. You could hear the first Cocking church that was built in Nigeria could be in Zozo place. You will see that the first Baptist church or first Anglican church, when you go to Nigeria, you will be able to see those strategic places, those historical structures. And also even some of the things, the belief system, the negative belief systems that people were doing, and how missionaries were able to curtail and stop those things completely, you still find them there.
Interesting. And what about Islam in Nigeria? Because I know a large proportion of the population is Muslim.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if they have certain landmark places as well.
Yeah, definitely. They do have. Precisely, the first people, I don't have so much authority to speak about this, but I know that Islam, before the Islam that came to Nigeria through Ottoman Othman Dan Fodio in Sokoto Caliphate, there was a long history of Islamic practice in Borno State.
Okay.
Borno State is up north, up eastern north, where the Boko Haram has caused a lot of ravage. So if you go there, they were practicing Islam long before the arrival of the Othman Dan Fodio Fulani in Nigeria. And because, of course, the Trans-Sahara road linking Nigeria to Libya and the Arab world,
right,
cuts through that axis as well. So, but then, if you go to Sokoto, to be precise, Sokoto State today is the headquarters of the Caliphate in Nigeria.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, where there is the Sultan. The Sultan of Sokoto is the overall head of the Islamic faith in Nigeria and some African countries, extend some African countries as well. So if you go there, you will see the works of Othman Dan Fodio, who first came who came with Islam in the northern part of Nigeria. You will see some of his historical information there.
Right.
You will see his is it tomb or his graveyard? You see it there. You will see lots of things. If you go to the Othman Dan Fodio University, you are able to see some maybe some pictures and some historical documents about Islam in Nigeria.
Super interesting. And I mean, you did mention Boko Haram, and it's it's very hard for me not to actually delve into that topic, because it used to be a couple of years ago a very prominent topic in the news. Right?
Exactly.
And tell us everything you know about it. Like, I'm very interested to see, like, where does this group come from? What do they want? What are they doing? Is there an end to what they're doing? Like, how would you define and describe and explain the Boko Haram, if I'm saying it right? Like, or what is that group? What are they doing?
Okay, well, most of the information about Boko Haram there is on the public space, but the Boko Haram simply means simply means education, Western education.
Okay.
Western education. Haram
Right.
means sin or
that
forbidden.
with, yeah.
So if you link the two words together, it means Western education is forbidden.
Interesting.
Right? Or Western education is a sin.
Right.
So that is the ideology behind Boko Haram. And Boko Haram is more of an ideological war. It's an ideological fight to say, okay, Western education is forbidden. And it's interesting to note that at the peak of the Boko Haram activities, there were even allegation of educated people among them.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
which is ironic, when you think of it.
Say it again.
It's a paradox when you think of it.
Yeah.
Unless they're educated in Oriental or different, but I mean, if they're Western educated and they're still within that group which is against Western education, it's kind of an irony.
Yeah, of course, yes. So let me bring it down to the ideological point of it.
Sure.
Now, if you look at Nigeria, the way it is constructed, there's that perceived high level of corruption among the elites, and then in most instances they don't the common man or the people on the street, they don't really feel the impacts of government. And those people in the government, who are they are educated. Right. They were educated through the Western education.
Of course.
So to the Boko Haram, I think, since people who are educated through Western, who have acquired knowledge through Western education, and with that education, it hasn't been able to help our society. Now, maybe at this point in time, we need to change anything Western system of government and then establish a government that is purely based on Islam, a state that is based on Islam, maybe that can give us what we want. Maybe that can promote justice in the society. Maybe that can bring sanity to the society.
Right.
Yeah. So that is, I think, the ideology. But suffice me to say here that there are lots of, what do I call? There are a lot of theories. There are a lot of theories about the Boko Haram thing. You know,
how it came to be, its inception, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there are a lot of theories about it. But then it's a kind of a way of expressing their dissatisfaction with the state. And that's why most times you see that if you watch their clips of their commanders, most times they are addressing the state, they are addressing the government, they are calling the president's name, and then they kidnap citizens and they cause havoc and destruction. Then they are calling the president's name, they are calling the state for failing to do something, so to do the right thing. So basically, at this elementary level, these are some of the things that actually ignited the Boko Haram. But some other people are saying that no, that is not the issue. The Boko Haram are a creation of political actors who use some disgruntled youths to acquire political power.
Right.
Yeah, but then now that they've acquired the political power, they have abandoned them. And since they've abandoned them, they have regrouped to fight back. You see? Yeah, so there are so many explanations around it.
But where does the animosity or hatred for Western culture education come from? Like, is there any justifiable roots or a legitimate basis or genuine basis for them to develop that resistance or that hatred towards the
Okay,
West?
yeah,
Where does that come from?
yeah, like you rightly mentioned, it's like a paradox, because they are using the Western clothes, they are using the even the guns that they are using is a product of Western education.
Right, I guess.
The clothes that they are wearing is a product of Western education.
Not a good product.
The YouTube that they are using is product of Western education. So it creates a kind of a confusion here. But I think, like I said, the Western education probably has been wrongfully used by the elites to a kind of there's an allegation of corruption. When I mean corruption, what you are supposed to get as a citizen, you don't get. You maybe you graduate from the university, you don't get employment. Schools, like last year, schools were closed for how many months? About 8 months.
Oh, during COVID, is that? Or?
Not COVID, because university lecturers were not properly taken care of, so they went on strike.
Okay.
And then lots of other social issues that are detrimental to the society. So I think they just form an ideology around that to say, okay, this Western education, these people, our governors, our ministers, our political office holders, they are Western, they acquire, their knowledge is that of Western education. They are using biros to steal money. So this time around, maybe the Western education that they've acquired is not helping our society.
Wow, okay. It's quite the rationale.
Yeah. You see?
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. And now, with that being said, are they still a major threat right now? Are they mitigated? Like how? Where do we move forward from there?
Yeah, somehow I think it's been transformed. The Boko Haram, the Nigerian government done a lot of work. I think there's a kind of reduction in the activities of Boko Haram, but then there was something that came up again, and they call it the herdsmen. You know, the herdsmen are now moving into the interiors and then causing havoc to people, attacking people in their farms and the rest. So as much as the Boko Haram is being dismantled, the herdsmen issue is also today is a serious issue that is receiving lots of attention as well.
How do you spell it? Herdsmen?
Herdsmen is men, herdsmen,
Herdsmen. Okay, herdsmen.
herdsmen,
Okay, yeah.
the herdsmen. They are essentially they are a migrant population, cuts across some African countries that are coming into Nigeria because of the lush vegetable in Nigeria. Nigeria is a very fertile country with good vegetables, good grasses for cattle rearing. And in Nigeria, the cattle rearing business hasn't gotten to that advanced stage where they have ranches, so they're moving from one direction to the other, and then because of the climate change, so they are moving down to the interiors of Nigeria, the middle belt of Nigeria, precisely where there's a lot of grasses,
Right.
and then now they need space. The farmers also need space. The farmers will say, no, you cannot dislodge us to rear your cattle. They are now saying, no, we need your land for our cattle. You see now? So it generates a conflict situation. So I think for now, that's what is really, that's what's really happening in terms of the insecurity in Nigeria. Then there are issues of kidnapping here and there, and so on and so forth. Yeah, but yeah, that's just basically what's happening. So it's a kind of, it's like it's been transformed from the regular Boko Haram that we know to kidnapping, herdsmen clash with farmers, and so on.
So like it kind of creates a vicious cycle, which is quite disappointing. But at the same time, like I'm pretty sure there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But you did mention kidnapping, and that really triggered in my mind the thesis that you're working on, because you're definitely working on human trafficking, which may have a kidnapping component to it.
Yeah.
What would you like to tell us about the thesis that you're working on?
Oh yeah,
the master's program.
Yeah, thank you so very much for this, Chris. Human trafficking is a very is an issue, a social issue of global concern. Nigeria is a country of destination and also a source. What I mean here is that is a place where people are being trafficked.
So it's not only a fertile ground to grow food and to grow vegetables, but also a fertile ground for something so terrible as human trafficking, which is
it's most times it's not only Nigeria that is. It will interest you to know that even here in Canada, human trafficking happens.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely convinced
so,
that it does, for sure.
The issue of human trafficking, it's an issue of global concern.
Right.
You've read in the media, or you'll see either on the social media or the conventional media, where some Africans were being trapped inside the Mediterranean Sea, trying to cross over to Europe, and so on. You've not read about it, but it's happening. It's a form of a human trafficking when people are being deceived to say, oh, we have a very good job offer for you in France, in Germany, in Italy, in anywhere in Europe. And so, okay, they are being promised that, and they told them, oh, you don't bother about the cost of procuring your passport on the journey. And then they deceive those people.
So it's total like catfishing scams just running.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty sad.
Yeah. So they move through the Sahara Desert, and then they come to the border of Libya, Libya to Europe.
Right.
So they load them inside some shaky boats that they were going to transport them to Europe, and then in the process, the boat capsized, and then and this keeps happening, and these are African brothers and sisters. So secondly, I got connected with the international director of MICAT, Media Coalition and Awareness to Halt Human Trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
And she shared a very interesting story of what she experienced in Europe. And she said during some of her walks in Europe, she met in the night she met lots of young girls uh, on the streets in the red light zone, and she started interacting with them, and she realized that most of them were victims of human trafficking
in the red light district.
yes yes they were victims of human trafficking, and she realized that majority of them were Nigerians.
Oh wow.
And she felt that there was a need to do something about
Absolutely,
it.
yeah.
So she came back to Nigeria and she set up the Media Coalition and Awareness to Halt Human Trafficking. And she contacted me because she knows that I had a heart for humanity. And then I said, this is something that affects our brothers and our sisters. Even brothers, even men too, they are being trafficked. It will interest you to know.
It's not only a women's issue, it's also like men are also getting victimized.
Yeah, exactly. Nigeria essentially is a football loving country.
Soccer, which we call soccer.
Soccer, yeah, soccer. All right. We call it football.
We have another sport that's called football.
Oh, okay, that's great.
But anyway.
Oh, fantastic. Right. So they will lure them to say, oh, we have this club in Germany that is looking for talents, and you look good, you can perform very well, you become an international star, and then it starts from there. We can procure the passport for you, you go for trial, not knowing that he is being trafficked.
Oh crap.
He's being set up for traffic. So we realized that these things were real and it's affecting our young brothers and our sisters. So she asked me to join into that crusade. So if you may put it that way, to be a part of this team. So and then I joined, and in the course of that work, I saw the reality of what's on ground. It's
so you saw it firsthand. Look what
it's heartbreaking. You hear, because we had young Nigerians who were returned with the help of the IOM, International Organization for Migration. And then if you hear the horrible stories that they went through, it's very heartbreaking. And I thought that this could be something that I should explore and see what it is, and put the information up there and see what we can do as a people to help control this. So those were some of the things that motivated me. I can tell, for instance, one day I was in my house in Abuja, then I got a call from one of my friends, and he said that one lady just called him from Libya to say that she was in danger. She was trafficked from Nigeria to Libya. So she was asking him, what should she do? And I told him, okay, just tell her to look for the nearest place and report there. Possibly she could be safe there. So, and then if you hear the horrible stories of how the journey through the desert,
right? Yeah.
The journey through the desert, and how they experience all sort of difficult things, then you will want to do something about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so
it's heart-wrenching.
Yeah. So that was my motivation. And then I started physical work on ground. We were in Edo State, Nigeria, where we carry out awareness campaign against human trafficking. So we have a kind of we produced a theme, not just one. One of the themes is Europe in my heart. One of the other one is Desperate Journeys, and there are some others. So it's a kind of sensitization, awareness. So we go to those places and then we shoot those films to young people to let them see.
So it's documentaries, right?
It's not documentary, but it's a film.
Oh, okay.
We selected actors
right.
that acted on Europe in my heart. For example, it's about a lady who believes that when she travels to Europe, she's completely settled.
Oh, wow.
So she placed herself in a situation that was vulnerable to be exploited by the traffickers.
Gotcha.
And so they took advantage of her and took her to Europe. But then when she went to Europe, she realized that it was not what she thought it was. her passport was seized, and at this point in time, she was being exploited sexually.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So we kept going to Benin with the support of the Danish embassy in Nigeria, the Danish Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the Danish church support organization. There's an organization in Denmark that they support church-based projects. So we got fundings from those people, and then we kept doing a lot of stuffs, creating awareness, making films, doing advocacy, and so on and so forth, to help curb these incidents of human trafficking. So for me, I think that generally, in the larger scale, to control this, the underpinning situation here is basically economic.
Okay.
Yeah, it's economic, because when people are economically deprived, they become vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in a larger scale, it would mean at the macro level, the government should be able to make the environment conducive for young people to have faith in their country. What I mean here is that there should be development to the people, there should be employment, there should be good health system, there should be good transport system, there should be good school system, there should be opportunity for people to express their skills.
Right.
Then people will not think of, people will not be vulnerable. So, but that one is it's more at a very larger level. So coincidentally, I was watching a video on social media of a British parliamentarian member who was speaking so passionately about the realities of what is happening now. It may seem that the Western world is beginning to receive a lot of pressure because of the irregular migrants.
Okay.
Yeah, the irregular and illegal migrants.
Illegal migrants. Yeah, we hear a lot about that on the news right now. The Roxanne Road in Canada.
Yeah, that are beginning to trunk in. So it's something that they are really beginning to pay interest to. What is happening? It means something is happening in those countries. There's something that those countries are not doing right. So they should be able to, when the government is able to implement some good economic policies that will make the people to want to stay,
right,
then that will control the situation. But at this level, we are only doing the little we could do. The creating programs. We also do rehabilitation. There's what we call rehabilitation, reintegration. The third word is what again? I can't remember very well. But then it's a kind of a safe house, right. A safe house that is built where victims of human trafficking are being kept there. Mm-hmm. We relate with some organizations in Europe and other places. Then, some of them, there are some pretty good organizations in Europe, in those countries, that reach out to the victim, to the human trafficking victims, and they found a way of getting them and trying to send them back to Nigeria. So what we do is we liaise with those organizations, we collaborate with them, and then when they send them, we move them to our safe house. They are kept there, they acquire skills, they receive trainings, and they receive psychosocial support, because obviously, if you see some of those people, you will see that they have been bastardized psychologically.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely trauma.
They
have been traumatized in that experience.
Exactly. So they don't even trust you. Right. So they see that if you want to help them, you are trying to help them to get something from them.
Right. Yeah, like they got screwed over the first time, so they're not going to want to get screwed over again by another entity.
Exactly.
Right? So it's harder to build trust when trust has already been shattered.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a lot of volunteers from different parts. Coincidentally, we just had a volunteer from Canada here.
Wonderful.
Yeah, she was in Nigeria. I think she's still ongoing. I think she had a problem with her visa, but then she still worked from online. But she was in Nigeria for some time, and then they are kept in the safe house. People who can come and give them psychosocial support, training,
Right.
and then eventually they pick up their lives again. Then we expose them to some skills, and then when they learn those skills and become stable, then we reintegrate them into the society, and then they begin to function in the society. Then they become ambassadors. They begin to share their own stories as well,
right,
to other people. So my research is focused on, okay, since Nigeria is a society that has a lot, that the church has a lot of influence. The church, not just the church, since religion has a lot of influence on the people generally, I feel that my research is focusing on how theologically we can respond to this issue of human trafficking.
right.
What will the church do under this circumstance? Will the church only come and be telling people, oh, your reward is in heaven, and then our people are suffering here? So I'm trying to see how the church could be, or the religious sector could be mobilized to form a kind of, what do I call it, to come up with plans and strategies,
Action plans,
right, plans
on
on how they can contribute. They could lobby the government to come up with programs. Yeah, there are agencies. There's agency, the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons is there, but those ones are basically law. It's just a kind of a regulatory organization.
Right.
But then there has to be something much more concrete. So the religious body should be able to lobby the government to be able to make the environment conducive to control some of these things. And I borrow it from the United States. The religious organization played a very serious role in terms of social activism on some social issues that affect the society and the rest. So I think that in Nigeria, my research is focused on, besides lobbying the government, they should also have a kind of structures on ground. Like the safe house we have, the religious organizations should also be having some safe houses that will be able to provide trainings and support to returnees,
right,
of human trafficking.
Okay.
So that they can be reintegrated and become very functional members of the society. So in fulfillment of that, not just the research, about 3 years ago, we came up with a project. We call it the Interfaith Collaboration Against Human Trafficking. So, and I'm the one chairing that project in Nigeria. So what we did was we mobilized key critical stakeholders from the Christian religion, key critical stakeholders from the Muslim religion, because these are the two major religions in Nigeria. There are traditional religious worshippers also. So, but then the traditional rulers, we also incorporate them into what we are doing. So we mobilized them into a conference. We had a conference and we said, look, this problem is our own problem. We have to come together, because literally in Nigeria, religious leaders are held in high esteem.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, they are held in high esteem. I will be reviewing a paper on global Pentecostalism, and there's this paper that Professor Andre gave me. By Obadere. He's a Nigerian author, an academician in the US. And I started reading the paper, and it talks so much about some of this, the influence of religion in Nigeria, to the point that before you become a president in Nigeria, you see that you have to go and be meeting the religious leaders.
Right.
They have to publicly endorse you. Yeah. So So in recognition of that influence, we started that initiative. And then what I intend to do is that to see how these religious leaders can use their various platforms to educate Nigerians
Right.
about the dangers of human trafficking. Thankfully, last year we set up what we call the Interfaith Working Committee. This Interfaith Working Committee, they came together and then they produced a manual with some from the Christian perspective and Islamic perspective together. Very short, precise, straight to the point. It's a teaching series on how to detect human trafficking.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So we're able to do that and produce it. And on the 1st of December last year, it was presented to the public. And today, it was presented to the public and endorsed by the government agency that is responsible for the control of human trafficking in Nigeria. So that document in the churches, in the mosques, in other public spaces, they will be using it. They will see the scriptural references to it to tell people that, look, this, when you see this and that happening, is a sign of human trafficking.
Wonderful. Well, I mean, I think this would be a wonderful place to end. Not to be too abrupt, of course not. But yeah, it's definitely something that I'm going to ponder about, and something for you guys to think about as well. Like, human trafficking is something that oftentimes flies under the radar, and despite the high level of horrific, high level of disgust that people may rightfully have towards that thing, it's something that not a lot of people talk about, and I'm glad that we have folks like Nandom Gunen who are heavily invested in searching, researching actually, and knowing more, exploring more this actual crisis that's happening all across the globe. It's flying under the radar, and it's in the dark. But on that note, yes, Nandom, thank you so much for being here. You're my second guest. I'm really sorry because I promised you you'd be the first guest, but we had Scott Royal jump in yesterday, and it was a nice way to segue from off Bishop Street 1.0 to 2.0. Thank you so much for being the second guest here. So guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. Nandom is a truly wonderful person. I've had the chance to meet him in the fall, and I wish you the best in your graduate studies. Hopefully you're going to go all the way, for a PhD if you'd like. I know I'm going for a PhD. That's what I want. Yeah. We'll definitely have you back on the show sometime soon.
Thank you so much. Yeah, but before I go, let me quickly say that I started making contact here in Canada, and I realized that human trafficking takes place through the social media here in Canada. And I'm also collaborating and see how we can be of help in the community that I found myself here. That is Montreal. Definitely the knowledge, the skills that I've acquired, I should be able to invest it in my own community here in Montreal as well.
Wonderful. I truly hope that does happen. I wish that for you. And
it's going to happen.
It will happen.
Yes.
So off Bishop Street 2.0, thank you guys so much for listening, and we're definitely going to have a whole slew of other guests in the coming future. Take care, guys.